So we are going to create our own custom mock-up, and we're going to start off with a really easy project. It's going to be a simple logo on a coffee mug, or it could be a graphic, whatever you want to put onto the coffee mug. So we're going to do two different projects to practice this, doing it two different ways. The first one is we're going to use a shot that I took at lunchtime. I went to lunch at a really nice restaurant and I saw a wonderful backdrop, a perfect place to go ahead and take a sample shot. I just took it with my iPhone. So this is the image directly from my iPhone. You don't have to have a lot of fancy camera equipment or anything to be able to create your own mock-up images. And once you kind of do this a few times yourself, you'll find yourself going to stores and all sorts of places and doing your own little mini shoots where you're taking a picture of wood, for example, at a store and getting texture ideas and texture samples, or you'll take a picture of a product that has a blank side. You'll take a picture of it. Once you learn how to create mock-ups, you'll get really excited about taking some of your own photography and background shots for this. So that's what we're going to do with this example. So I'm going to open up the raw JPEG right from the phone into Photoshop. Just bringing that photo right in. And the iPhone did an excellent job. It's a really great camera, this iPhone X. It's not even the latest one either, and it did a good job, but we're going to do some slight tweaks, maybe do some contrast and brighten it up to be able to make this mock-up ready. So one thing we can do is go over to our adjustments panel and just do a little brightness contrast. I'm just clicking on brightness contrast, just increasing the brightness ever so slightly. We don't need anything too dramatic. If we do it too much, it starts to get washed out and the background and the cup blend too much together. So we just want a little brightness to make everything pop. And let's kind of see if we can increase the contrast to kind of bring those shadows and highlights out in the mug. And what's great about adding adjustments in your adjustments panel is it's added on a separate layer on top. So I can just toggle that on and off if I don't want those settings, or I can double click this icon and be able to adjust it right back to where it was. And it's great. It's like treated as a separate layer. You're not actually doing the edit on the photo itself, so you're not permanently editing that photo. You're just adding layers on top. Let's do another one. We are going to go over and do curves on the adjustment panel. So I'm clicking on curves, and this is what brings out highlights and shadows. So you can see all the pixels that have low, dark, black settings over here, and the pixels that have really bright white settings over here. And the curve helps you bend certain colored pixels that are brighter or darker, and it bends them to make them brighter or darker. So if I wanted to take all of my dark pixels and my blacks, I can go ahead and press on the bottom of the curve and move it up, and it's going to brighten all my really dark pixels. Or if I wanted to take my really bright ones and darken those, I can drag it down and make it darker. So you'll see this curve being used a lot. So what I want to do is I want to bring out a lot of these dark areas a little bit more. It's still a little too dark for me, so I'm just going to bring some of those pixels and kind of do a curve just like this. And then if I were to take some of the bright pixels and make them darker, you can pretty much just increase the contrast of the photo overall. I can toggle this curves layer on and off to kind of see the effect that it has. You'll notice it kind of brightened up a little bit of the background. And if that's kind of the effect we want to go for, we can toggle it on and off and see if we like the curve adjustment. So just doing some things to kind of help the image feel more polished before we put our logo or illustration on it. Another thing I like to do, especially when I take my own photography, is see if I need to sharpen anything. Sometimes it can get a little blurry if your hand was a little shaky when you took the photo. In this case, it's a really great shot. I had a lot of really bright lighting. This was taken in kind of a upstairs restaurant, and it had a lot of sun coming in from the top. So it provided a beautiful backdrop, lots of lighting. So I'm not going to need to really sharpen this as much because the camera had enough lighting to really capture everything well. But sometimes I just like to go and make sure I can sharpen it. So I'm just going to select our photo, go down to sharpen. I'm just going to do a quick little sharpen just to kind of give it a little bit more of a crisp look. So we didn't have to do a whole lot to this, so we're already ready to add a very simple logo on the top of this mug. And I'm starting off with this project for a good reason, because it's going to be a very simple mock-up to use. We're just going to place the logo right here. We won't have to do a whole lot of warping to make it wrap around the mug. We're just going to do a simple small logo on top. So it's going to be super easy to do. What we're going to use and talk about is smart objects. So smart objects in Photoshop contain the original photo source or image source. So that means I can continue to edit an image, and if it's a smart object, it still retains that original image. So we're going to do a little bit of an example. So we can go ahead and get our logos popped up. This is the fake logo examples vector resource file that you can download. I also have transparent PNG files for those who don't want to work with the vector program or they don't have one. I also have just PNG files you can use for this too. But what's so great about Adobe Illustrator is I can highlight the logo we're going to put on the mug. I can drag it right into the mockup, and it's going to create its own layer. I'm going to put it right here and size it up. So what we want to do right now, since I brought it in from Adobe Illustrator, it makes it a vector smart object, but we want to make it a smart object. So we're just going to right click this, and this is the same if you bring in a PNG. You're going to want to right click, and you want to convert this to a smart object. We want this to be smart. We want to be able to retain the original image, so we're converting it to a smart object. So what's great about smart objects, just like we did the first two mock-ups where we were able to double click on the smart object thumbnail, it opens up a new window. We can do the same thing now. We just created a mock-up just like that. And so now I can switch out this logo if I want to. So let's say I don't want that one anymore, and let's say I want to bring in a burger bar or something, or maybe coffee and cream. Let's bring in coffee and cream, apply that, and all I have to do is close out the window and save it just like we did before, and it went ahead and replaced it. And we can scale this up and make it bigger so it has a bigger footprint. Go ahead and press enter. So now we can go back, double click the space, and bring in our original logo again, close it out, and you can see how easy it is to switch out logos. We may have to do some adjustment on the sizes to get it right. And so just like that, we have something that is we can exchange and change out. What we want to do is we want to label this so we can really keep track, because when we start doing really complex mock-ups later on in the course, we want to be able to label things so we can really keep track of what's going on. So I am going to right click, and you can add different colors to your layers so you can label it. So it tends to be the ones that the smart objects that you can change out tend to be red. So we're just going to mark that as red, and that indicates logo on mug. And let's go ahead and just title this background image. And so now we want to kind of we can use folders as well. So if I want to go ahead and grab those three layers, those all have to deal with the background. We can put that in a folder. So I just went ahead and clicked one, held down shift. I can go ahead and just click them all. And I'm going to just go ahead and click down here on the folder. It'll go ahead and put everything in the folder, or everything that's highlighted, into a folder. So that's kind of nice. So that's everything with the background. You can call this background, and that's just helps keep it organized. It's not really required to put things in folders, but I think it's very helpful. So now we need to be realistic, because if you zoom on to this, it just looks like a flat logo on a mug. It does not look realistic at all. There's no highlights, shadows, reflections, bouncing of light going on. It's just this flat black logo. So how do we get this to show some of this reflection of this spoon? See this spoon right here? We really want that spoon to reflect in the logo itself. We're going to add another layer on top of the logo and use blending modes to let some of the pixels underneath in, so it'll let through some of that reflection. So this gets a little complicated, but it's no problem, because we're going to do this over and over and over again throughout the course.